A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards. It is great to have you with us on the program once again. Coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about the latest out of Virginia, where Governor Ralph Northam is expected to try to ban guns from the Capitol grounds ahead of Monday, January 20th, Lobby Day at the Virginia State Capitol. We'll get to that in just a moment. I feel like we've been a little Virginia-centric here on the program, in large part, because this is ground zero right now for the gun control movement in the United States. They are, again, trying to turn Virginia, which has always had pretty good gun laws, into South Jersey or perhaps East California. And there, again, has been a huge pushback by gun owners and Second Amendment supporters across the state of Virginia. But Virginia is not the only state where gun control bills are moving. As a matter of fact, let's start with a story out of Florida, where Governor Ron DeSantis says he's not sure about a gun control proposal that actually cleared a Senate-controlled or a Republican-controlled state Senate committee, a bill dealing with background checks. Now, I got to tell you, this is a weird bill, first of all. It does not require background checks on private sales of firearms. Instead, what it requires, by the way, I take that back. It does require background checks on private sales of firearms at gun shows. Any other private sale or transfer of a firearm does not require a background check, but the individual selling the firearm is supposed to fill out this government form, is supposed to get it notarized, and then is supposed to keep this form indefinitely. I got to tell you, I have no idea what on earth this is supposed to solve. We know that criminals who illegally acquire their firearms are not going to obey this law. This is more red tape, a more burdensome regulation for those legal law-abiding gun owners. And Ron DeSantis, as well as the Speaker of the House in Florida, Jose Oliva, expressing some skepticism, let's say, about this proposal. This comes from Creative Loafing in Tampa, Florida. They say that DeSantis appeared skeptical of this proposal that would also impose, by the way, a 3-day waiting period for firearms sold at gun shows. He says, quote, "So when they say this to me, I don't really know what it is," meaning gun show loophole. He says, "I know that there are talking points, but the fact of the matter is that anybody who is selling firearms is going to have to do background checks unless it's just a private sale. But you're not going to have a table at a gun show on a private sale." The Speaker of the House said that the House, quote, "is always very careful when we in any way start to infringe on those things that people consider their constitutional rights." He says, "If you talk to the sheriffs around the state, they will tell you that our red flag laws that we passed before they were even named red flag laws after Parkland have already saved lives. These are the areas that we have to be looking to. There is no proof that a person's ability to get a weapon affects their ability to use it. And so we have to be very careful when we once again look to trample on people's constitutional rights." I would go even further. I would say you don't have to be careful when you look once again to trample on people's constitutional rights. I would say you simply shouldn't trample on people's constitutional rights. It's not a matter of, well, can we do it carefully? Can we trample carefully? You can't trample carefully. It's just, that's an oxymoron. It's like jumbo shrimp. So don't trample on people's constitutional rights. If you're concerned that you'll be trampling on people's constitutional rights, stop. To borrow a phrase from an Eagle, stop, leave the area, and tell your voters that, wow, you know what? These are folks that are trying to trample on our constitutional rights, and I'm not going to do it. Meanwhile, Senator Bill Govano, who is the author of this measure, said, quote, "It's important that we look at these issues in their totality." He said, "That's what we set out to do. That's what I told the people of Florida that we would do." And certainly, he says, there is a balance. But there is he says, and there is a realistic anticipation of outcome that comes into play. He said, but I think that the committee's been doing good work, and I'm going to continue to support it. He said, quote, "It's incumbent upon the sponsors of bills and members of bodies to explain and make the correct arguments." He said, "If you would have said to me 3 years ago that we were going to do what we did 2 years ago in the wake of Parkland, I would have said, boy, that's going to be a really difficult lift in the legislature." He said, "I've lived in for many, many years." Mm-hmm. It's interesting. The website Creative Loafing in Tampa notes that the 2018 law, which in addition to the red flag law, also raised the age to purchase long guns from 18 to 21, was the first gun control legislation approved by the legislature in Florida in decades. They write, quote, "But the schism among GOP leaders over this year's measure indicates that any proposals that can be frowned on by gun rights proponents will face serious pushback." Well, yes, and rightfully so. We've talked about the Florida red flag provision on this program before. In fact, we've talked with supporters of the red flag provision in Florida on this program before. And I do believe that the red flag provision that was put in place in Florida was not done in an attempt to, disarm the populace one by one. I don't think that that's what it was about. Having said that, I still think that there are due process concerns. I still think that there are grave concerns over the rubber stamping of these red flag applications, or when somebody, applies for an emergency, extreme risk protection order. I just think that, baked into the cake is the idea that a judge is going to err on the side of caution and is going to approve one of these orders under the theory of better safe than sorry. And in the meantime, individuals' constitutional rights are deprived. We've seen in states that have enacted these red flag measures, the states that have enacted them have had them on the books for the longest period of time, Indiana and Connecticut. According to a study by supporters of these red flag laws, they say that gun-related suicides declined in these states. And they claim that for every 19 red flag orders that are issued, for every, 19 individuals who have their firearms seized, one person, they say, is stopped from committing suicide. That's really hard to actually quantify. And I don't know that I necessarily buy those statistics. What I do know is that in these two states that have put these red flag laws on the books, the suicide rate has actually increased. The overall suicide rate has continued to go up, and it's gone up substantially in both Indiana and Connecticut. So the idea, again, that these are mental health bills, that these are bills that are narrowly tailored to achieve a very specific goal, sure, they're narrowly tailored to achieve a specific goal of taking somebody's guns away from them. But the goal is not to ensure that that individual who's been determined by a judge to be a danger to themselves or others gets help. The goal is not that that individual is taken into custody and faces criminal charges. The goal is not even that this individual is removed from their home, where they also have access to knives and pills and belts and gasoline and matches, whatever else they might use to harm themselves or others. That's not the goal of the red flag bill. The goal of the red flag bill is to take somebody's guns away. That's it. And that makes it a gun control bill. It does not make it a mental health proposal. In fact, it's the opposite of a mental health proposal. The red flag bill that's been introduced in Virginia does not have a single mention of the phrase mental health anywhere in the bill, because it's not a mental health bill. It is, however, good to see that there is some pushback in Florida to these gun control measures, again, from the governor and from the Speaker of the House. But if you are a Florida gun owner, again, make sure that your state senator has heard from you for sure, because this is a Senate bill and it has passed out of committee. But I'd go ahead and talk to your state representative as well about these issues. Meanwhile, in Virginia, yes, we cannot stay away from Virginia. Governor Ralph Northam expected to announce this afternoon, probably shortly after this program gets posted online. Northam expected to ban firearms from the Capitol grounds ahead of the Lobby Day rally, which is coming up on Monday, January the 20th. Already, Democrats in the legislature changed the rules and made the state Capitol building itself, as well as the office buildings, gun-free zones. And they lied, by the way, when they did this. They claimed that this was done at the request of the Capitol Police. And the Capitol Police commander, Colonel Tony Pike, said, no, they asked us how best to implement this, but this was not done at our suggestion, as Democrats maintain. According to USA Today, we have, I think, maybe another little bit of a dispute between now the governor and the Capitol Police. USA Today reports that Governor Ralph Northam, again, plans to declare an emergency and ban all guns around the Capitol on Monday, citing fears of violence similar to the deadly white nationalist in Charlottesville rally in 2017. Northam's office would not confirm the reports, but said the governor will hold a press conference later Wednesday. So trying to tie this into a white, and really trying to compare this Lobby Day rally coming up on January the 20th, when Virginians from across the state of all races, colors, creeds, nationalities, religion, however you want to slice and dice this demographically, you're going to find somebody in however narrow a demographic group that you could possibly find. They're going to be there at Lobby Day in Virginia because this is going to be an outpouring of Virginians. But they're trying to now put it in the public's mind that, oh, you know, it's another Charlottesville. It's another white nationalist rally. And again, that's coming from the governor's office, which I think unnamed spokespeople familiar, I should say, with the governor's thinking, according to the Associated Press, are putting that comparison out there. USA Today talked with the Capitol Police. Joe Mancinka, spokesman for the Division of Capitol Police, he said, quote, authorities are preparing for a larger than usual lobby day this year and will rely on law enforcement partners around the state as necessary. He said, we want people to have a safe environment to have their voice heard. If you're trying to lobby for legislative change, it behooves you to have a positive environment on Capitol Square. But Mancinka also said that Capitol Police, quote, Capitol Police have not heard much from out-of-state groups, but dismissed the comparison between the Lobby Day and Charlottesville attack. Again, this is the spokesman for the Capitol Police, Joe Mancinka. He said, quote, Charlottesville didn't seem to have any purpose. People seemed to come together bent on committing violence. There is some very serious legislation at issue here. So in other words, while the governor, or at least individuals familiar with the governor's thinking, are trying to, again, in the public's perception, tie in that violence in Charlottesville to the peaceful lobbying of lawmakers that's going to take place on Monday, January the 20th, the Capitol Police spokesman says, you know what, I haven't really seen that. Not that that's going to stop the governor from moving ahead. He is going to move ahead. And unfortunately, I think it's very clear in the state of Virginia, and I say unfortunately, and I mean that because I think it is terribly unfortunate that this is the tack that anti-gun Democrats and Governor Northam are taking. You know, no matter what you feel about the policy differences in this debate, the fact that, again, you're now seeing these moves by Democrats to try to present and portray the tens of thousands of Virginians that have shown up at their county commission meetings, their city hall meetings, to support Second Amendment sanctuaries, to compare them to folks who are out there advocating violence or committing acts of violence, I think is disgraceful. You know, we now have 130 Second Amendment sanctuaries in the state of Virginia. And at zero of these meetings, has there been any violence? Have there been any threats of violence? Sometimes the meetings have been a little raucous, but there has never been any trouble. By the way, not only at any of the 130 meetings where the Second Amendment sanctuary resolutions or similar resolutions were successfully adopted, but when cities or counties reject these measures, we have not seen violence. We have not seen people throw chairs or get in the face of lawmakers and threaten them to. We haven't seen it. Tuesday night, Lynchburg, Virginia, City Council there voted 5-2 to reject a Second Amendment sanctuary ordinance. Crowd was mad. They were bitterly disappointed. And there were some folks there who showed up 2 hours before the meeting started so they could speak. There were about 150 individuals who signed up to speak, and the meeting lasted for more than 6 hours before the city council said, no, we're not going to pass this resolution. And again, none of the attendees responded and reacted inappropriately at all. But unfortunately, I think we have anti-gun politicians in this state, anti-gun advocates in this state, who are, again, trying to present this narrative that, oh my gosh, you got to be scared of these gun owners. Boy, these gun owners are just going nutty. These gun owners are absolutely crazy. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have a piece about this at Bearing Arms this afternoon, but let's talk about this for just a moment. What are Moms Demand Action saying about Second Amendment sanctuaries and Lobby Day? This is from momsdemandaction.com. Here's what you should know about the gun extremist rally in Virginia on January the 20th. They say on January 20th, gun extremists, including out-of-state militia groups, will descend on the Virginia General Assembly, hoping to intimidate lawmakers into rejecting the democratic will of the people, who they say by wide margins want and voted for champions of common sense gun safety laws. Again, it's not about intimidation. It's not. But it's about continuing to use our voice. And again, when Moms Demand Action volunteers show up at city council meetings, or when they've gone to some of these county supervisors meetings, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with anybody using their First Amendment any more than I have a problem with anybody using their Second Amendment rights, or their Fourth Amendment rights, or their Fifth Amendment rights. But Moms Demand Action doesn't like it when people use the First Amendment to protect the Second Amendment. They also talk about Second Amendment sanctuaries, which they call, by the way, lawless county resolutions. I know. Lawless county resolutions, they say, hold no legal weight, undermine law enforcement, and create a dangerous environment for people who may hurt themselves or others. Lawless county resolutions, they say, or as gun extremists call them, Second Amendment sanctuary resolutions, which threaten that officials will disregard their duty to enforce duly enacted and constitutional laws, have no legal force. The resolutions, they write, also threaten the safety of communities nationwide by fostering distrust in law enforcement. Actually, I think they foster trust in law enforcement more than anything else, and may deter people from reporting individuals that may hurt themselves or others. Yeah, first of all, again, gun extremists. I've talked to dozens of folks who have attended these Second Amendment sanctuary meetings. I've been to 10 of them myself. I wouldn't call any of these folks gun extremists. Many of them, frankly, haven't paid that much attention to politics in the past. And some of them feel chagrined about that. But, a lot of them, they don't want to pay attention to politics. They don't want to live in this world where you're constantly obsessed over what's happening at the State House. But they feel like they don't have a choice this year. Because while they may not be interested in politics, politicians are very much interested in them. And so they're responding. Again, peacefully, powerfully. As for the lawless county resolutions, again, we've seen county prosecutors in the state of Virginia. We've seen the attorney general of the state of Virginia say, I don't think some laws should be enforced. Whether it's some of the drug laws on the books, Mark Herring refusing to enforce or defend a ban on gay marriage shortly after he was elected Attorney General. Now, look, I happen to agree with Mark Herring's decision not to defend that law. But don't tell me on the one hand that politicians, that elected law enforcement in Virginia, Commonwealth's attorneys, the Attorney General, county sheriffs, don't tell me that they have the discretion to ignore some laws, but they don't have the discretion to ignore gun control laws. Either these folks have that discretion or they don't. And pretty clearly, they do have that discretion. We've seen it. All right. Anyway, I tell you what, let's get to, one more thing that I want to talk about here from this Moms Demand Action thing. White supremacist accelerationists, they say, I can't even pronounce that, aligned with a militia movement sparking fears of another Charlottesville. See, it's not just It's not just the governor's office. It's gun control activists who are trying to plant this seed in the public's mind of, oh my God, Lobby Day is going to be just like Charlottesville. Meanwhile, the spokesman for the Capitol Police says, no, I'm really not seeing that. Really not seeing any comparison between the two. Now, I don't know about you. I happen to think that of Moms Demand Action and the Capitol Police, one of those groups has a pretty clear agenda and a pretty clear motive to try to portray this event in the most negative light possible. And they're doing it. And again, sadly, all too often, they're being aided and abetted by the media and anti-gun politicians. They say the NRA has yet to make any public statement disavowing this January 20th event. It's a lobby day rally. Why would anybody disavow people going to the Capitol to lobby their lawmakers? He said, Moms Demand Action says, however, the NRA's people and rhetoric are intertwined with the January 20th rally. Yes, intertwined. They say the NRA put out a formal statement supporting the lawless county resolutions, and former NRA TV personalities like Cam Edwards and Antonio Okafor are listed as speakers at the rally. Indeed, we are. And I'm not going to be advocating violence. I don't think, in fact, I'll go out on a limb and I'll say that none of the speakers are going to be advocating white supremacy or white nationalism or violence against the government. We're there. Well, I'll speak for myself. I am there to talk to lawmakers. I'll be talking to the tens of thousands of folks in attendance as well. But I'm there to talk to lawmakers. I'm not there to intimidate them. I'm not there to yell at them. I'm there to try to convince them of the drastic mistake that they are about to make and to try to get them to turn away from the course that they're taking. That's it. I'm there. I will be there to speak in defense of my constitutional rights. I will be there because I love the state that I live in. I love the people that I live with. I want to continue to protect them with my lawfully owned firearms. I don't want to see hundreds of thousands of Virginians turn into felons overnight because they maintain possession of the magazines that they currently own. I don't want to see Virginians put at risk of having their due process rights deprived with a really bad red flag law. I don't want to see politicians try to impose a backdoor gun registry with a universal background check bill. More importantly, well, at least as important, I do want to see politicians take serious steps to continue to reduce violent crime in the state of Virginia. I do want to see politicians take some preliminary steps to address the mental health crisis that we have not only in the state of Virginia, but across the United States. I don't want to see politicians pass a bunch of useless, unenforceable, and unconstitutional gun control laws and then say, look, we did something. Because I want them to do something that works. I want them to do something that doesn't violate the constitutional rights of residents. And I want them to be honest with the people of Virginia about what their bills would and would not do. So that's why I will be there on January 20th. All right, let's get to today's Armed Citizen story, our good deed of the day, and our recidivist report, which also happens to be, by the way, an armed citizen story from Texas, where a Fannett, Texas man was fatally shot after kicking in the door of his ex-girlfriend's home. According to Channel 12 News in Texas, Buck Aubie, who was the suspect's name, had a lengthy criminal history involving prior domestic violence charges. In fact, Aubie was supposed to be arraigned the day after he was shot in Jefferson County, Texas, on assault, family violence, and terroristic threat charges. The day before he's supposed to be arraigned, rather the night before he's supposed to be arraigned, he shows up at his ex-girlfriend's home, kicks in the door, goes inside, apparently begins a fight, and that's when he was shot. Now, Channel 12 News says back in the late 1990s, Aubie pleaded guilty to a Class A misdemeanor charge of assault causing bodily injury to a family member. Then August of 2000, October 2002, felony assault family violence charges. February 2009, 4 months in jail on a charge of assault causing bodily injury to a family member. June of 2010, assault causing bodily injury to a family member. Spent 4 years on probation for those charges. Never really did spend any serious time behind bars. He was also arrested in June of 2007 for assault causing bodily injury, served a year on probation. August of 2000, it was an arrest for assault family violence. December of 2012, an arrest and a guilty plea for felon in possession of a firearm. By the way, he got 90 days. Yeah, 90 days for being a felon in possession of a firearm, despite the lengthy criminal history that he had already accrued. Then March of 2015, a arrest and guilty plea for evading arrest. He got a 4-year sentence for that. Yeah, 4 years for evading arrest, 90 days for being a felon in possession of a firearm. Even though he got a 4-year sentence, apparently most of it was suspended because of, by June of 2016, he was out on the streets again, arrested for evading arrest or detention. Now, the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office says that there were several people inside of the home when Aubie broke in. They are all cooperating with authorities. I expect there's going to be a pretty clear-cut case of self-defense, but we'll try to bring you more details as it becomes available. Meanwhile, another pretty clear-cut case of self-defense, this time in St. Louis, Missouri, where a 22-year-old concealed carry holder fought back against a would-be carjacker. This comes as politicians in St. Louis are trying to do everything they can to impose restrictions on legal gun owners and don't seem to be doing a whole heck of a lot to deal with the actual, drivers of violent crime here. KPLR, Channel 11, said a incident took place Sunday afternoon around 5:50 in the afternoon. Intended victim, a 22-year-old, told police he had just parked his car, got out of the vehicle when a red pickup truck pulled up beside him. Older guy got out of the truck, pointed a gun at the victim, demanded the keys to the victim's car. The victim cooperated. He handed over his car keys, but the suspect tried to shoot him anyway. And that's when the victim was able to grab his own firearm, fired several shots at the carjacker. Suspect ran off on foot. Pickup truck followed after him. Victim told police he did not think that the suspect was wounded. Thankfully, the would-be victim in this case, not wounded either. And hopefully, it's not likely, but hopefully, police will be able to make an arrest in this case going forward. Now, our good deed of the day from LaGrange, Texas. I'll give you a moment so you can sing the ZZ Top song in your head. Betsy Buckley. I'm sorry, you know what? I said LaGrange, Texas. I take that back. LaGrange, Illinois. I don't know that ZZ Top ever sang about LaGrange, Illinois. You can still sing the song in your head if you want. Betty Buckley in LaGrange, Illinois. Betsy Buckley. Driving home on Hazel Avenue in LaGrange back in November when she saw a car that was stalled on a set of railroad tracks. There was a freight train that was approaching. People were still in the car. So Betsy got out. And as it turns out, a grandmother was struggling to get her 4-year-old granddaughter out of the car seat. Stuck on the tracks, train coming down. Betsy Buckley helped remove the child. Moments later, the train ended up striking the car. Thankfully, nobody was injured. Car, as you might well imagine, absolutely demolished. At Monday's LaGrange Village Board meeting, Betsy Buckley was honored for her role in helping rescue the girl from that car. She was presented with a Citizen Award, credited for her, quote, prompt and alert actions that resulted in averting a potentially serious accident. A number of police officers and firefighters were on hand for the award presentation. Betsy Buckley thanked them for their work, saying, quote, you are our role models. You do it every day. She says, did it once. So there you go. In the right place at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. Betsy Buckley in LaGrange, Illinois, we thank you for your very good deed. And that is all the time we've got for you on this edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company. Coming up on tomorrow's program, more of the day's top stories, more reaction to Governor Northam's Capitol Grounds gun ban in Virginia. And we'll get to some of your comments and questions as well. They've been coming in this week. cam.edwards@bearingarms.com is the email address. I apologize. I have been very, very busy and have not had a chance to reply to as many emails as I would like, but I'm going to slowly try to work my way through them this afternoon and this evening. In the meantime, don't forget, you can subscribe to the program on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, townhall.com's podcast page, Town Hall Media at YouTube. You can also become a VIP member of Bearing Arms. We certainly do appreciate your support. And thank you for watching another episode of Bearing Arms Cam and Company. We'll see you tomorrow.